ago. It's still less than what we've been the 2001 bond issue. Any of those issuances, to my knowledge, I don't think we're close to what the rates are still now, even after they've in a reverse direction lately and increased. By the way, the parameters resolution in there does give parameters around financing. It's just not stated as terms of an interest rate. It's stated in terms of a maximum annual and a maximum total repayment cost in terms of dollars, not in terms of percent. And frankly, I didn't calculate the percent of, but because it's in there as those two maximums. Correct, Ms. Crowe?
Yeah, because what did you put on the ballot language? Maximum.
There's no interest rate there either.
No,
It's
I
in
know,
terms
it's not
of
an interest rate, but it's a maximum
Right.
cost. Right. So what interest rate did you use to
I believe Ms. Van Meter has it.
Well, I don't have the interest rate, but the ballot language is that with a repayment cost of no more than $387 million.
Yes.
So we have to manage that.
Approximately 5.5%.
Perfect.
remember also, I think Deanna alluded to this, but there's good and bad about issuing over a period of time. Not the voters gave authority for you to issue $230 million worth of bonds. One good thing about not issuing that all in January, because we can't, but one good thing is there's 2 other series out there that we can make adjustments to as needed, depending on what happens with interest rates, assessed value. There's lots of factors in there, but it allows some adjustment period. Whereas if we were to sell $230 million in January, the good is you have $230 million and these projects aren't deferred out for several years. They can happen sooner. But you've also locked in, there's no flexibility after that. You've kind of locked that in for the next long period of time. So there's some adjustment that can happen with this if things change drastically. Not with this issuance, but because of the next 2. Am I making sense?
Well, I think you've done an excellent job addressing any questions from the board. At this time, I think we're ready to move forward to vote on the motion. Yes. So, Ms. Haddad?
I needed a second, because Larry, you made the motion, correct?
I don't think I did, but so.
So,
Second.
there we go.
Thank
So,
you.
Mr. Borland and Mrs. Van Meter.
Okay.
Now,
Mr. Borland?
Aye.
Mrs. Bullock?
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Van Meter? Aye.
very good. Thank you very much for being here and return to your regularly scheduled lives.
Oh, boy. Oh, yeah. That's not too far.
All right, so move back up to item 10 on your board agendas, please. And that's where we will hear from Dr. Hatchell, one of the most important reports of our year.
Thank you very much. Dr. Fields.
Good evening. So Joanne and I are pleased to be presenting to you our annual E1.1 report this evening. The Learning Services Leadership Team, there's a few of us left. Some of us are sick and couldn't be here this evening, but they're here in attendance tonight to listen to your conversation and answer any questions that you might have about the report. The report reflects the board's charge of monitoring the global end statement that all students will have the knowledge, skills, and character necessary for successful transition to the next level, and upon graduation will be fully prepared for success. This report also reflects our teachers and principals' hard work and focus to ensure all students show annual growth toward increasing levels of academic proficiency across all content areas by meeting or exceeding Colorado academic standards and D20 graduation requirements, and then will identify and pursue their areas of personal interest and ability. By utilizing the district performance framework as the basis of this report, there is a tight alignment between the district improvement plan, each school's site plan, and the school improvement plans. So we are very focused on having all the arrows pointing in the same direction with a common goal focused on student achievement and growth. And I'm going to have Jolynn start next.
Tonight, as we go through the E11 report with you, we will share highlights and information, including methodology and interpretation of a few of the indicators in more detail, as well as examples from our schools. I will begin with the first indicator. This indicator is accomplished by making reasonable progress in at least 8 of the 10 indicators. This indicator is measured by the overall rating of the district performance framework. The standard for meeting this indicator is the same as the state expectation of accredited with distinction or accredited. The district performance framework, or DPF, had many changes this year. There were less indicators. In the past, we had 4 indicators, and in 2016, there are only 3. Additionally, the criteria to meet or exceed was more difficult. For example, high school graduation rates were raised from 90% to 95%. As you have heard, I am proud to share that Academy District 20 was accredited with distinction, so the standard for this indicator was met. Indicators 2 through 4 are measured by the 3 major indicators of the district performance framework: academic achievement, academic growth, and post-secondary workforce readiness. For each of these indicators, the standard for the E1.1 indicator is met by meeting or exceeding state expectations. Indicator 5 applies the standard of meeting or exceeding state expectations on the DPF for each content area at all 3 levels, including elementary, middle, and high school, on the CMAS Park assessments. D20 met or exceeded the state expectation in the 9 content level test. Therefore, the standard is met for the indicator. For indicator 6, annual growth is met by meeting or exceeding the median growth percentile as indicated by the performance indicator on the district performance framework. D20 students posted growth scores meeting state expectations in 5 of the 6 content areas and grade levels. Because our overall results as a district also indicate meeting the annual growth criteria, the standard for this indicator is met. Indicators 7 and 8 are met by meeting or exceeding state expectations indicated on the DPF for ACT and graduation rate. Indicator 9, post-secondary planning in the pursuit of personal interest, is met by meeting or exceeding the state requirements for ICAP. The standard for the indicator is a state requirement that is not part of the DPF. Notice that the state requirement is that students in grade 9 through 12 engage in ICAP. District 20 goes above and beyond the requirement by providing ICAP experience for middle school students as well. There are no state requirements for middle school participation. That is why NA is listed. Indicator 10, the final indicator for E1.1, is met by meeting or exceeding the state performance target for career and technical education set with the Federal Office of Adult and Vocational Education. District 20 CTE graduates exceeded the standard with 91.9% of respondents employed or continuing their education 6 months after graduation. All 10 of the indicators met the standards. ENDS 1.1 is achieved as interpreted. For E1.1.1, proficiency of tools, techniques, and technology, reasonable progress was accomplished by meeting 2 of the 3 indicators. For indicators 1 through 3, we have used CMAS Park tested standards that most closely relate to the effective use of tools, techniques, and technologies. You will notice for indicator 1, the applicable ELA, or English Language Arts standards 2, 3, and 4 support the necessary skills. At each level, elementary, middle, and high school, District 20 students met state expectations. For example, District 20 elementary students scored a mean scale score of 750.9 on the English Language Arts portion of the test. Therefore, elementary students met the expectations as determined by the cut points on the district performance framework. You will notice indicator 2, the applicable math standards 1, 2, and 4 support the necessary skills. At each level, elementary, middle, and high, District 20 students met state expectations. For example, District 20 middle school students scored a mean scale score of 743.6 on the math portion of the test. Therefore, middle school students met state expectations determined by the cut points on the district performance framework. For indicator 3, state expectations were met or exceeded for the applicable science standards. For example, high school students exceeded expectations by scoring 87 on the CMAS science assessment. Once again, cut points from the DPF, or District Performance Framework, were used to make this determination. The Statement of Regional Progress for E1.1.1, 3 of the 3 indicators met standards. As a result, the end is achieved as interpreted.
So historically, the board has asked for numbers of students involved in activities related to N1.1.1 through 1.1.4. A Google form is created and is sent to principals, and they send us their participation numbers. This table, while not part of the indicator, provides some examples of participation in activities that support E1.1.1. We have placed these activities with ends that are closely related. These same activities could be also considered to support other ends. Likewise, other activities could also have been selected to support this end. This set of activities is not meant to be comprehensive, but rather to provide examples. Building principals provided information about the numbers of participants for a variety of activities. It should be noted that the numbers are approximate in many cases. Excuse me. So, Jolyn and I were actually talking about, under this first section, the effective use of tools, techniques, and technologies, that BYOD initiatives would be a great place to place that, because the example that I want to share with you is one from Eagle View Middle School, where they have a very robust bring your own device initiative. So I have a group of principals that are interested in learning more about technology. It's my professional learning community that I work with this school year. There are 7 principals, and they're elementary, middle, and high school level. We recently visited Eagle Middle School to learn more about the Bring Your Own Device initiative and how teachers were utilizing devices as a learning tool. We visited 5 8th grade classrooms right before Thanksgiving, and we observed the fabulous use of tools, techniques, and technologies. I could speak about all 5 of these teachers in great length, but I want to highlight Paul Ballweber's social studies class that I was in that morning. So each student on their own device, and most of the devices that we saw in 8th grade were laptops. I would say about 90% were laptops, about 10% were iPads. Were actively engaged in a class lesson on King George III and how he treated the colonists. So they were working on a breakup letter to the king. The colonists were focused on, when we were in there, he was just focused on how do you write a good topic sentence. And Mr. Ballweber had his students engaged in an interactive PowerPoint tool called Pear Deck, P-E-A-R-D-E-C-K. When I asked Mr. Gaydek about it, he had to repeat it like 3 times. But students would type their topic sentence into their laptop or their iPad, and Mr. Ballweber was able to solicit participation from students by posting their sentence, and it was hilarious. These students were very creative. So what ultimately I observed with the use of tools, techniques, and technologies was very high engagement. Every student in the classroom, there were probably 28 or 30 kids in the classroom, were actively engaged with the teacher, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
For E1.1.2, proficiency of critical and innovative thinking, the same methodology described for E1.1.1 for determining progress is used. Reasonable progress is accomplished by meeting 2 of the 2 indicators. Policy Provision Statement E1.1.3, accordingly students will be proficient in problem solving. Interpretation of policy provision statement E1.1.3, reasonable progress is accomplished by meeting 2 of the 2 indicators. Statement of reasonable progress, 2 of the 2 indicators met standards. As a result, the end is achieved as interpreted.
So E1.1.2 is critical and innovative thinking, and this is a big list of activities that students have opportunities to participate in. And as I went down the list, I thought I would just brag and talk a little bit about AVID. And at Prairie Hills Elementary School, they have become a national demonstration site for AVID. I don't know if you all were aware of that, but Vicki Axford, who is the principal there, has hosted 2 or 3 visitation days where administrators and teachers from around the country can come in and observe her teachers using AVID strategies, and they also get an opportunity to talk to Vicki about the AVID program and the benefits for kids. As a result, Vicki and one of her literacy teachers, Kate Motley, have become national AVID trainers, and they're actually at the National AVID Conference as we speak, and they will become trainers in Summer Institute moving forward. So Vicki's gotten very involved in AVID, and we have a lot of people who come into our district to see her school. So we're very proud of her.
Policy provision statement E1.1.4, accordingly students will be proficient in appropriate, creative, and effective communication. Interpretation of policy provision statement E1.1.4, reasonable progress is accomplished by meeting 2 of the 2 indicators. The statement of reasonable progress, 2 out of the 2 indicators.
Did you skip 1.3?
No. Did we? Oh, no.
We went from AVID, right?
Did I not read this? No, I think I just said that, didn't I? I don't.
Say it again.
Okay, I'm gonna say it again.
Oh, perfect.
I'm like,
You did, you said it really fast.
I did probably, because these are a little there's a lot less verbiage, I guess I would say, than we had
Okay.
on some of them in the beginning. So we read the policy provision statement for E1.1.3, which was, accordingly, students will be proficient in problem solving. Interpretation of policy provision statement E1.1.3, reasonable progress is accomplished by meeting 2 of the 2 indicators below. And the statement of reasonable progress to these 2 pieces is that 2 out of the 2 indicators met standards. As a result, the end was achieved as interpreted. Are we good?
Yep.
Okay.
So I want to go back to Eagleview, and I want to tell you about this zombie apocalypse that occurred there. And it really illustrates the use of problem solving and collaboration. So when they kicked off the BYOD initiative, they thought they really wanted to grab the kids' attention. So the 8th grade team created this event. So I'm going to read to you just real quickly what the kids had to do. So it says, it's Eagle time, and you and all your classmates are excited to kick off the new BYOD initiative. But where's your teacher? Hear a noise in the hallway and open the door to see what's going on. It's Mr. Jameson, or what's left of him. He drags 2 students outside, muttering something about brains. You quickly shut the door to protect yourselves. Those kids are a lost cause. Your class escapes through the door, in the wall, and finds safety in the health room. It's time to make a plan. So what the teachers explained to us is that the kids had a whole Google suite of apps that they were to use to problem solve. I won't read the whole thing to you, but one of the things they had to do is they had to send a letter to the president, so they had to collaboratively write a letter. They had to create a PowerPoint. Right. And this went on for a couple days, and it just really got them into the apps, the Google apps. They had to create slides to present their case. They had to use maps to route a safety route out. They had to use Excel spreadsheets to determine costs and what they needed. And it was just a really successful event. But it really just highlighted, and they talk about how the kids were so engaged and excited about a learning activity that was very hands-on. So that's what I wanted to share.
Okay, policy provision statement E1.1.4. Accordingly, students will be proficient in appropriate, creative, and effective communication. Interpretation of policy provision statement E1.1.4. Reasonable progress is accomplished by meeting 2 of the 2 indicators. The statement of reasonable progress, 2 of the 2 indicator standards were met. As a result, the end is achieved as interpreted.
So in this last section, we added this year, last year when you all were debriefing about this report, you had asked about speech, and I believe band is new, you can see the asterisks there, and vocal music. So when we sent out our Google form to principals, we added those areas, and it's significant, as you can see, especially vocal music with nearly 6,500 students that participate. But I thought this would be a great opportunity since we added band, and we've had athletics here for a while too. You know, one of our bands, well actually 2 of our bands, Liberty High School won the state marching band title, which is awesome, and then we have Air Academy High School Band, which has been invited to march in a very prestigious Rose Bowl parade in 2018, I believe. And we just are very proud of all those programs. And then of course we have a recent state championship in football at Pine Creek High School, Discovery Canyon's high school play, The Addams Family, got to present last week at the Belco Theater at the Convention Center, excuse me, as part of the state.
That's fun.
Yes, and so we are just very proud of our students, and our students excel in so many areas. So I just wanted to highlight a few of those things. The other thing I wanted to tell you is in Appendix D, you'll notice we added this year, you all had also discussed last year at the end of your debrief about the STAR data. So we created an Appendix D. It's at the very end of the report that has the STAR testing by elementary, middle, and high school. So that is our formal presentation. It's a different report this year. It's kind of back to normal, I would say, because last year, remember, we did not actually get a DPF. We got to carry over the same DPF pretty much as the year before. So this is our first year with park longitudinal data, and it felt really good to give a really accurate report. So we're available to answer questions when you're ready.
Mrs. Van Mater?
Wow, I love this report, even though this meeting always goes really long and the discussion is really late. But I love this report, it's fantastic. So I really appreciate all the work and all the background that went into this. I know you don't dump, dozens and dozens of pages on us, but you do a really nice job of summarizing it and tying it all back to things that are relevant to the criteria, so thank you. I just wanted to say there were some things that I liked about the report. First of all, I wanted to go to I'll kind of go backwards. The E1.1.1, the second section, if you will, of the report, that's what I call it anyway. But E1.1.1, I just wanted to say under the first indicator, and it's actually all the indicators, I like the way that you broke down the standard mean scale score and gave us both the meets and the exceeds, so that for the current year, we could see how close we were to either meets or exceeds, up or down. I think that really was very helpful in framing the conversation, because even in areas where we meet expectations, many of them were very, very close to exceeds. And I think that speaks to what you've been talking to us about the tightening of the bullseye. That's why in so many places we meet now rather than exceed as we did before. So I really appreciated the bullseye that we had received. Ms. Allen had brought in that a couple of times just last year, and I love it because that really helped me. That was the first picture in my mind when I saw this. So that was a great job of teaching. So thank you. But I really did appreciate that because I'm looking at indicator 2 in 1.1.1. You don't have to flip there, but it's just. Like the meets on that one was 749.9 and exceeds is 751.9. I mean, just to understand how close we are to exceeding on many of these. So I'm looking forward now that we have taken this test, and now that our kids are there and they have done a lot with it, and the teachers are looking at the data. I'm looking forward to the days when we'll see ourselves moving back into the exceeds range. You can see it, and the goal is very close in many of our categories. So I wanted to say that. I also noted on page 8 of the report, activities. I'm curious about something. We had a couple of them. I think I know the answer to this about Math Olympiad at UCCS, but there was a dramatic decline. Did I see more kids participating in maybe math counts or something else somewhere in the report? What's that
So
about?
the UCCS Math Olympiad is the last 2 Fridays in April, and we were in a park window of testing.
Okay.
And remember, we
You can
had
do
like a
it.
Thursday, the 20th, that was a professional learning day, and there's just so many days in April, and it just depended on where the school was and their testing window. That's why.
Okay, that makes sense then, thank you. I understand that. And then robotics. I noticed that there was a dramatic decrease in the numbers of participated that were reported. 890, yeah, and I knew you'd notice it if I didn't. 890 to 392, and yet we're hearing more, like this evening, we had more kids on a new robotics team. So I'm trying to sync that up. Help me with that. What's happening there?
So what I can tell you is I did follow up with schools saying numbers look different from this year, and so some of them it was sometimes it's just the way the schedules worked out that they haven't been able to pull together an extra club or an extra activity. I think what we may be seeing too, I'm literally just thinking about this as you said that, is that we see robotics and some of the things being integrated into what we're doing and not making a unique stance of it. Does that?
Standalone class.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Because kids are doing it in class.
Right.
That would, yeah, so I don't know if there's a way to extrapolate that information for next year, but that might be something useful to know. When something becomes, yeah, just like we saw an example of that tonight with the radio class. Now that's not, well, I don't know that he'll probably offer it as an after-school club, but you know what I mean, if more kids are taking it in class, they may not be doing it as a club. So it would be really interesting if there's, I don't want to create a reporting nightmare for you, but I'm just thinking out loud. You know, it might be interesting if there's a way to determine that we, you know, if we take something that was an extracurricular activity and begin to move it in, you know, as part of what we do.
More integrated.
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing as you talked about the BYOD initiative, tools, techniques, technologies. Would be interesting to put in here as supplemental information, how many kids now are participating in tech strand schools, in BYOD, you know, how many of the schools, how many students there, you know what I mean? Big round numbers, but I'm just looking for how many kids in our district are in a program like that or a school that's doing that. So that might be useful. Like I said, I love the report. I also wanted to ask you the question on the bottom of page 10, middle school, high school IB personal projects. Those numbers increased. Are we seeing more kids staying in the MYP, or do we really have any idea, or are there just more kids taking IB, or what do we know
Well, I
about that?
think most of our kids that are in our NYP programs at DCC, Mountain Ridge, and Rampart, everybody's in. So all the students in 9th and 10th grade are in NYP.
Okay.
So if you
They're
have,
at Rampart now?
they are at Rampart, yeah.
Oh.
So if you have, let's say, 800 9th and 10th graders, that's what drives the number up. And then, of course, in the middle schools, in Discovery Canyon Middle School and Mountain Ridge Middle School, all kids are MYP. It's a school-wide program.
But they don't have to do the personal project, do they? Isn't that a choice to
Right.
stay in or not stay in?
Right, and so, well, actually, most,
I mean, Discovery Canyon, they're IB, and they don't have to do their personal project, but
they do.
and don't forget that school is in. Yeah, that, okay.
So maybe it's just an influence is what you're saying. It's
Right.
not necessarily required, but more kids are just doing it because everybody's doing it.
Almost all kids do it,
Okay,
or some
Interesting.
form of it, they
Okay.
do.
very good.
Yeah, and then like I know the middle school kids and the elementary school kids at Discovery Canyon will go up to the high school when the high school's doing their personal projects, and the kids get to, you know, hear presentations by students. So it just, and the kids come back very excited about it, so it just continues to breed success because there's a lot of enthusiasm around it. So.
Very good. Okay, thank you. I also wanted to mention the increased participation in Young Ameritown. It's not a huge increase, but Young Ameritown is one of my favorite things, and it's extremely challenging because it's very limited. And we heard some conversation a couple of years ago from you know what I'm going to say, Dr. Hatchley, Junior Achievement here, about starting a Young Ameritown location in Colorado Springs. Do you know anything about that? Are we
Biztown.
Biztown?
So I was there last night for a board meeting. We'll hopefully start next school year.
That would be phenomenal. It is a fantastic
It's in
experience.
Colorado City on about 30th, whatever's out there. It's the old Goodwill, if you remember.
Mhm.
It's where J.A. moved to.
Oh, very good. That would be wonderful because, you know, our kids have to go to Denver now for the experience. And if you get snowed out, you're done. They don't have any days to reschedule anyone. They are booked, and you have to usually book. Your teachers know and get on it. They have to book a year in advance. And if you have a child who ever got snowed out of a Young Ameritown field trip, it's like canceling Christmas. I'm telling you, it's terrible.
Well, Biztown will be better.
Oh, this town?
I've been on that board 6, 7, 8 years. Last night we had a big meeting and a holiday thank you, and it was like an Academy 20 get together. It's amazing all the vendors who supported their Academy 20 parents and so on. So, yeah, I'd say 2/3 of the very full room was Academy 20 last night.
So does Biztown have an Air Academy federal credit?
They should. Well, then, we expect an invitation to the opening.
I think it's first bank, but I'm not positive.
Since you have an in, we expect an invitation to the opening.
All right. Duly noted.
Last thing on the last page, I wanted to point out, I did want to say thank you for, as you pointed out, you did what we asked last year and split out the high school activities that from athletics, from drama, theater, performances, band, vocal, music, speech. We really appreciate that information, and it's astounding to see that 25% of our kids participate in vocal music. Woohoo! I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And the drama numbers, 10,000 kids participating in performances, drama, theater, musical performances. That is just phenomenal. It speaks to the balance we have in this district. It speaks to the emphasis on arts, and I think our kids are very fortunate because there are many places where those programs are on the chopping block, and that's really sad for kids in those areas who can't participate. So that's fantastic. Before I give up the floor, I want to go back to the beginning of this report, and I want to ask you, very top, on indicator 6, annual growth, when we talked about earlier, consistent with the purposes of the Colorado growth model, that piece, it's on page 3. Okay, you noted before that it meets the standard for the indicator, but we have one category there, that was approaching middle school math. Explain to me once again how we met the standards for the indicator, because it says that the standard is successful annual growth is demonstrated by district median growth percentiles within the range